potential for flourishing or risk for MOT researchers. So we'll start with Professor Breno Nunes, since he's right here.
Thanks, Gita. Thanks for inviting me for this panel. I sit in Aston School in Birmingham in the UK, and I'm representing here IEEE Engineering Management Review. IEEE Engineering Management Review is very much interested in practice-oriented research problems. That's, in several different areas, or there are a couple of, say, department areas in the journal, from moving products to the market, from identifying, critical systems, integrating technology for capabilities. Sustainability is also a very important area. But I think, answering directly your question now that you know what journal I represent,
yes,
and where I'm sitting in terms of academia, I think one of the key elements, and I think it draws upon a lot of things we've heard in the conference today, is that for one technology to succeed well in the real world, it requires a number of conditionings. And it's very difficult to say this is the most promising technology without looking in the surroundings of that technology. So I would say that if I were to choose a topic, would be around technology convergence. What are the key technologies that work together and create an impact? For instance, we're talking about AI a lot. I see AI providing a lot of impact if combined with other source of knowledge in different areas. So there is an agenda for regeneration strategies. If I take my area of expertise, sustainability strategy, sustainable innovation, and I think this is one of the topics that needs to be studied. I think there will be a lot of activity in trying to combine AI and other forms of technology to regeneration.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nunes. Professor Islam, can you first introduce which journal that you're with?
Okay, so I'm Nazrul Islam, Professor of Business and Director of PhD Program at University of East London. So I represent here a journal called International Journal of Technology, Intelligence and Planning, IJTIP, which is AVS rank a 1-star and ABDCC ranked. And also I'm representing TFSC, which is called Technological Forecasting and Social Change. This is AVS 3-star journal. I'm associate editor for TFSC. Right. So regarding IJTIP, so we are actually publishing a research-based article as well as practice-oriented articles. And we are trying to fill the gap between the academia and industry. So you want to see, and also you publish a hybrid features of technologies, technological analysis, technology road mapping, and different kind of impact. Could be social impact, could be economic impact. So we both are inviting quantitative aspects and qualitative aspects of research and hybrid features of technology. But the key focus would be talking about the technology planning and the decision making, organizational decision making, and focusing on how technologies change over the time and how it impacts organization. Regarding the question, I think you are talking about, so which MOT journals and innovation management topic, we believe, right? So in IJTIP, of course, as I say, we hold a great potential for the audience and readers for flourishing. We balance that way that we are moving on ethical governance nowadays, and like IJTIP, which can act as I said, research-oriented and also practice-oriented research, which highlights the key aspects of technologies and analysis. But also now we are trying to focus on how to encourage emerging researchers, like potential researchers who wanted to publish fast, to try how it goes before moving on to AVS 3-star or 4-star, a top-ranked journal. So my impression, my philosophy is here for the audience. Those are the new researchers. I would welcome to those have a conference papers and then they can submit a polished version and improved version of conference papers in IJTIP, and we are welcome to that kind of research, so they can see firsthand publication before moving on to the top tier journal.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. Dr. Brem, Dr. Alexander Brem, please introduce your journal. And the question was about which MOT or IM topic you believe holds the most potential for flourishing or risk for MOT researchers.
Yes, hello, good morning also from my side. My name is Alexander Brehm. I'm professor at the University of Stuttgart in lovely Germany. And I'm joining you this time from Denver because we have here the IEEE conference from all journals from all over the world from IEEE. And that's also the journal I'm presenting together with Breno at the IEEE Engineering Management Review. And I'm also associate editor for technological forecasting and social change. So many busy people here around in the auditorium. And I believe that AI, what Breno briefly mentioned already, is the big thing now. And I would just like to add different dimensions to it. Because one dimension is that people are using AI to write articles. And I think this is happening already. In many cases, not as we wanted. So the people use it to have a better English, for instance, or for grammar and stuff, but also to generate content. And that's a bit of a dangerous development. And I see this in many of the submissions that I think it's pretty obvious. Sometimes it's even, the prompt is even in the papers. So I'm happy to provide you the review and I'm happy to provide you a better version of your article. But it also goes beyond that. It also goes beyond to reviewing. So many reviewers, even though they're not allowed to, also use AI these days to create their review reports. And we also have the journals now AI detection tools. So the world will be a bit crazy in the future, putting it to extreme to say AI will write articles, AI will review articles, AI will detect if the article fits to the journal, and AI will publish it afterwards. That's a bit of a provocative statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brem. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that everybody is, concerned about how people are using AI, especially journals. Dr. Stephen Walsh?
Hey, I'm Steve Walsh. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, please mention the name of your journal. And then the question was about which MOT topic has the most potential for flourishing or risk for MOT researchers.
Well, I am leaving TFSC right now. I am in the Journal of Sustainability Management. I work with Nazrul as an area editor for IJTIP. I work for IJITIM. But the journals are all looking at AI, that's true. But you're asking me what I think is going to be next, and I think it's going to be the transformative economies. We're very excited about AI, but the transformative economies are things like fusion, things like aerospace, and things like quantum. And these, for example, in my state, I live in the state of New Mexico, and we've spent over $1 billion on fusion from the state, just the state alone. We spent over $1 billion on quantum, just the state alone. And we spent over $1 billion on aerospace, just the state alone. And if you put that with the grants that just our state has from the federal and international society, there's probably another $2 or $3 billion. The problem is not too many of the MOT professors know this. And this is, once, we're seeing the problems with AI. Breno set some of the problems, so did the other editors. But there's another problem with AI. None of the companies are starting to be very disenchanted with AI since
Dr.
they're
Walsh?
seeing
I think we have to move on. So if you can wrap this up in the next,
No,
sentence
that's right.
or so.
You go. No, so AI has a problem that it is not producing any productivity increases. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Steenhuis, can you please introduce yourself and your journal? And then the question was, which MOT topic you believe holds the most potential or promise for flourishing for MOT researchers?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. First, I'm sorry I'm not there. I wish I could be sitting on that podium. It's always a nice experience, but there were some difficulties, and with this war in Iran, ticket prices went up a lot, and it made it pretty difficult to go there. I am Jaime Sinas. I'm editor of the Journal of Manufacturing Technology Management. We are basically a very theory-oriented journal. What we're interested in is research that enhances our understanding of basically manufacturing technology. So it's not like technology broadly speaking. On occasion we'll accept a paper like that, but generally speaking, we're looking at something in the context of manufacturing. To help people, if you want to publish in a journal, I wrote an editorial. It's in volumes 36, number 5, and it explains what we're looking for exactly. If you don't remember volume and number, just do a search on the JMTM website. In terms of your question, I think it kind of goes back to what Brenda was mentioning. I mean, we have concerns about the AI, and we have strict guidelines on that. But in terms of what Brenda was mentioning, I think for us, a lot of things have to do, what we see a lot is Industry 4.0 or Industry 5.0, and you look at those technologies and how they're developing. And I think one of the most interesting areas for us is actually looking at what works in what kind of context. And in your question, the question that you posed, and I'm referring to your email because I had a little bit more information, but you're looking at different contexts, right? Developing countries, developed countries. And I think in particular, what's interesting is to look at which of these technologies actually work in what type of context. And what we get a lot is a submission where somebody will say like, well, we did this study in Pakistan because it hasn't been done in Pakistan before. I could care less about Pakistan. It's not about Pakistan. It's about what kind of environment does that represent, and how is that different from, for example, an environment of a developed nation like US or whatnot. So most of the papers we get don't actually get into that. They're just explained as part of the methodology. We looked in this particular context, but they don't theorize about the context. And that, I think, is a really promising area where you actually really look at what's the environment and theorize about that environment and what that means for, what works or what doesn't work in certain nations and how that can help technological development and economic development.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stenius, for that insightful, comment of sharing that, theorizing about the context is important, or theorizing about why they're studying, a researcher is studying something is important. Let's move on to the next question. Yeah, so we talked, you anticipated this because the next question was about industrialized and developing economies. We see that, industrialized and developing economies are focused on productivity scaling up and ethical and privacy issues. In addition, developing economies are focused on issues such as enabling access to basic services. So what role can journals play in highlighting technology that enables human flourishing in both environments? Let's start with Professor Islam this time, and I'll come back to you.
Okay, I think regarding if we think about the potential for flourishing journal roles and responsible AI enable workforce or something, this new resilience, if you think about. So which hold the great potential in the coming era, AI digital era. So, and that is one of the kind of avenue we can look at. But at the same time, if you're thinking of scaling the balance between the traditional topics we are publishing and also how to encourage or invite the new topics like AI-based topics research, and that is also important. My journal, IJTIP, we are, as I see, we are inviting both practice-oriented journal and also research-oriented journal. Is an authoritative source for technology intelligence, which highlights technological analysis and impacts. But at the same time, we are thinking of for the developing economies that can manage productivity in the industrialized one. So we are also careful about that, so that we can see that kind of balance. Potentially, I would say that in my case, in my IJTIP journal, we receive mostly European papers, some papers coming from Asian countries. I'm in India, China, these countries, and but not too many submissions like TFSC, where we have more than 10,000 submission per year, and it is still struggling, and it's a interdisciplinary journal. But we are told by the ABS listing committee we need to focus on to reduce the submission to make it more impactful or more top tier journal in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. Dr. Prem?
Yeah.
How can journals address the issue?
Yeah,
Or-
I think this is
sorry, it was Brem.
Oh, Alexander Brem.
Alexander.
Breno, go ahead. No worries.
Go on,
Sorry,
Alexander.
Dr. Brem. Sorry, Breno, I was going to come back to you. Go ahead, Professor Brem.
Sorry, Breno. The topic, I think, is how we can publish interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary research, because these days the most exciting insights come into play when people work together from different disciplines. And this is usually the case when somebody from sociology works with business or engineers, but the journals are not prepared for that, because the journals are pretty much focused on specific areas. And I would be even provocative to say they want boring research, boring in a sense that things which have been done before, where we know methodology, a known background, but the real big insights, I believe, come from interdisciplinary work. And this is something we are also struggling with at the journals where I'm involved in, because it's also very difficult to find reviewers then. So who is then the appropriate reviewer who can really evaluate if this content makes a contribution to science? So that's a challenge on the one hand, but I think also a big opportunity for the future, how we can also have a bigger impact with our journals.
Thank you for that, Dr. Brem. Now, Breno. Sorry.
That's all right. Breno, it's all similar.
It's okay.
Look, I think this is an extremely important question and a difficult one to tackle, because we need to think about the circles and how academic publishing is going these days. The true reality behind it is that most of the time, probably 90% of the time, academics are writing for academics. And we keep talking about bridging the gap. We keep talking about, we are probably privileged, to be editing papers for engineering management review, which is practice oriented. So try to have different style, accept a slightly different perspectives and fresh ideas. But the other journals are not there. And there's very little interest sometimes in making that bridge. So I would say that journals should be interested in a full story, or what Masoud Amin used to say, whole systems or end-to-end solutions.
Right.
We are very keen to accept beautiful stories about strategic making. There is very little study on strategic implementation, strategy implementation. We don't actually know what worked and what didn't work. We talk about how many billions have been spent and why AI has been doing that, or why someone adopted, a green technology. But just an example, one of those kind of things that you do the study but end up not publishing the paper. Some colleagues of mine and myself, we worked and then we reviewed a number of papers with product service systems implementation. And one of the things that we were asking is are those papers actually communicating any outcome of adoption of product service systems, of service technologies? And in the end of the day, they weren't. They had a lot of perception of managers. Oh, this benefits me, this strategically, but there was not, a significant number of papers saying we reduced cost by 10%. We reduced emissions by 5%. So these type of studies, I'm afraid that sometimes if you do something like that and then you go to the journal, of course, if you do the end-to-end, it's easier to be accepted. But if you just point out some discovery in that area, you end up being called atheoretical or even just like too descriptive. And I think that's something that perhaps needs to be changed in the value of this type of research that looks at implementation, that look at tangible and evidence-based results of technology implementation.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Walsh?
Hi. If I understand, you're asking about interdisciplinary studies. I also thought you talked about for, let's say, non-G7 countries, or is it just multidisciplinary?
Well, the question was actually something else, but we are talking about, well, when you are doing work on human flourishing, sometimes you draw on different types of disciplines. You know, the literature spans
Right.
different disciplines. It could be ethics, it could be sociology, it could be some other ecology, if we're talking about sustainability. So how can you integrate this multidisciplinarity into rigorous, you know, MOT studies, management of technology studies?
The management of technology field started by
Yeah.
doing just that. And that's what, at least in my research, I develop theory, but I also am looking for its application. And I've done that I've published in just about every journal in the field, and I find them take that. Now, I tend to put together engineering, science, and management in my papers, and I think a lot of people do. It's like if you're doing road mapping, that's all application. And then you have to develop a theory on how you would do different types of technology road mapping. So I think that still is fairly centric in MOT research, but perhaps I'm just too old school. So that's what I'll say.
Okay. Dr. Stenius? How do you handle multidiscipline? How can
sorry,
you handle
I'm-
multidisciplinarity properly and make it and be a, you know, make studies be rigorous if you're a journal
Yeah.
looking for?
Yeah,
Journals
so
are
I
not
think-
necessarily receptive to multidisciplinarity sometimes.
Yeah, I think, so to echo some of the previous comments, actually what we get a lot is extremely boring articles where the methodology is more or less perfect, let's say, and the study is meaningless. So what we're looking for is kind of like a little bit of a mix of what Brenna was mentioning. So we are not looking for the pure application-oriented studies where they just measure and then they look at, well, did we have an improvement? We want to have that theory element as well, because you're supposed to be learning from it, and then you should be enhancing the theory. So as a little insight, what we implemented for the last couple of years is for the articles that are published in JMTM, they have, aside from a structured abstract, they have what we call quick value overview. And the quick value overview has three components to it. It says why the study is interesting, why the paper is interesting for somebody to read, essentially, what kind of theoretical contribution it makes, and what the practical sense of that is, what's the practical value. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to push the authors to explain essentially, if you look at the literature overall, why is this particular paper of interest to anybody? How does it actually contribute anything to theory? And then what is the practical application of that? And I think in general, again, we get a lot of studies that don't really do anything. Like, a lot of studies on lean, and they just show like, yeah, lean can give you improvements. Yeah, we already know that. We've already known that for a very long time. So the more interesting stuff is where you actually have that multidisciplinary element. So if you think about, for example, Industry 5.0, we start to think much more about the human connection to the technologies. That's where stuff gets interesting. If you have people that delve more into maybe psychology aspects or sociology aspects or something like that, and then look at, if we implement certain things, what kind of improvements are there? And those improvements could also be, improvements for the workforce. So we are completely open to those kind of articles. And in fact, if you just, because this is the other thing, a lot of times what we get is these studies, again, more or less perfect methodology, but they have these hypotheses. And the end is, well, all the hypotheses are confirmed, and they all confirm what is already in the literature. Well, if that's the case, why should we publish it? It's already known. There's no point in us publishing it.
Thank you for that, Dr. Stenius. Let's move on to the next question. So how does your journal embrace new forms of publication, knowledge sharing, etc., beyond the traditional standard 8,000 word paper? for example, impact papers, practitioner articles, etc. So how does your journal embrace that? We'll start with Dr. Brem first. Dr. Alexander Brem?
Yeah, sorry, there was a problem with the connection. Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. How does your journal embrace new forms of publication and knowledge sharing beyond the traditional standard 8,000 word paper, for example, impact papers, practitioner articles, etc.?
Yeah, here we have different publication types already in place beyond normal, so to say, articles who are longer than 8,000 words, maximum 10,000 words. We have a new format, it's called Technology Management Notebook articles. And here we invite practitioners, but also researchers who reflect upon a certain topic or experience. And here we need like a personal experience as a kind of rigor approach, or it can also be like a colleague from Cambridge did recently, who summarized his kind of research in the last 20 years he did about road mapping. Also, what are the key ingredients about road mapping? And I think this is a new format where we also try to focus more on a practitioner audience, even more on a practitioner audience. And here we have two native speaker associate editors who focus a lot on the so-called red line of arguments. So it's much more about understanding and bringing the message across rather than a traditional peer review process. This has limitations because the articles are only 2,000 words long plus references. That's a challenge for most authors. And yeah, but it's getting more commonly accepted, I think, also as I saw from many other journals in the field. And since we still have printed issues, we wanted to stop the printed issue, but then our readership or our subscribers approached us and said, that's not a good idea, please continue, because many of them, they still get the printed issue within the company. They put a sticker somewhere and give it to the next colleague, so it's also still something which people read within the company. And that's also a key ingredient for us being a journal of practice.
Thank you for that. Thank you for highlighting the practice, that you have things for practitioners as well. Steve? Dr. Walsh?
Well, I'm pretty new on most of the journals I'm on right now, but most journals have something like a perspectives. The problem with the shorter articles is they're not considered research articles, so they don't really count toward tenure and things like that. I also wrote for R&D magazine, which is where I put a lot of my, let's say, practitioner stuff. So there's a problem where the researchers need to get the recognition they need. The journals want to provide avenues. I'm sure that Nazrul will talk about what we do there. So I think that there is a big push towards more practical outcomes and having the journals be something that is actually useful, like Harms has said. And most of the time, we all take theory, we try to develop new theory, and we try to be relevant. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. But it's not going to work until our different schools and universities accept those papers as research. That's it.
Interesting. Thank you so much. It might be that, given the new AACSB standards, for example, in business schools, ask you for impact. So maybe this is an area that will eventually catch on. Dr. Steenhuis?
Yeah, so it's that impact thing that we are, more concerned about. That's why I mentioned, like, we're looking for, the influence on theory development, but it should have a practical consequence, because if there's no practical consequence of it, then what's the point of the whole thing? So in terms of your question about, what kind of maybe non-traditional things do we do? We don't really do a whole lot of non-traditional things. We have essentially research papers. We do on occasion, we'll publish a viewpoint, but a viewpoint is not counted as a peer-reviewed journal article. And we will only do that if we have like an expert, like some of the people on the panel, for example, if they would want to write a viewpoint on developments that they see, we would welcome that. But generally speaking, some starting research or whatnot, we would not publish something like that. We have, a little bit, it's not necessarily a very innovative or whatnot, but we have, last year we published a special issue. So we do special issues. That's one of the things that can help you to do something a little bit different. But last year we had a special issue that contained only literature review papers. So literature reviews is another kind of like difficult one, essentially, because then the question is, what are you contributing? How does it help? And we decided let's try to combine all of these so that when somebody gets a special issue, they basically get an update on a whole variety of areas that are related to manufacturing technology, different kind of like angles on it. And we try to make that available to, again, kind of help people in the field. But that's about the only thing. So mostly we are pretty traditional in what we do.
Thank you. Dr. Brenner Nunes.
But I have actually very little to add because Alexander has already covered EMR, but I echo the words that Steve and Hamian was saying there. I think in the UK, I can speak a little bit about the context in the UK, and Nazrul, please back me up if you like. In the UK, there is the REF, the Research Excellence Framework, and academics that are expected to put outputs in that. Mm-hmm. And depending on the type of department that you are, if there is a cap and then you're covered for the next cycle of REF, then you may have some leeway to work on the visibility of your work by, I don't know, writing a critique of a paper. Mm-hmm. You need to know what kind of journals accept letters, critiques, mm-hmm. opinion pieces, and these can be a quicker way for you to make your work more accessible, right? In a shorter piece, let's put it in the way.
Thank you. Dr. Islam?
I think if I can link with that research excellence framework in the UK, REF, so they are now trying to move on to look at the articles, those have significant impact, social research impact. They're focusing on it because impact case study, that is another criteria for REF. So they want to look at those are publishing, not only that published the research paper, rather than how it impacts the society and economy. That is the key point. So based on that, I'm talking about TFSC, Technological Forecasting and Social Change. What they're trying to adopt now, they're publishing a new form of way to publish is short paper that is called insight paper. And they are publishing now. Although we have had perspective articles rather than research articles, we have research articles, whatever the length is, 12,000, 13,000, it would be more than that. But perspective article is very shorter, only 4,000 to 6,000, 7,000 words, and insight is more shorter. So that is the new form of publication doing TFSC. And with IGTIP, where I'm editor-in-chief, Steve was also in the board, associate editor. So we have traditionally published several articles, all the articles for the last 10 years. But now we are trying to focus on, we are giving opportunity to the emerging researchers like doctoral researchers, PhD researchers, those are publishing, presenting papers in conferences like IAMOT, they're presenting papers. So when I was in Montreal IAMOT last year, so the best paper awardee approached me, so sir, I want to publish my paper, so is it possible to, why not? So you can just send Polish version or updated version, and then we are producing a special issue. I just have a talk to Bruno, and that special issue will come up short. In the same way, I also have IGTF as a partner for IAMOT, and also we are approaching a fast track publication and a special issue based on IAMOT conference papers. So this is the way to encourage new and emerging researchers to publish in the first paper first, and then go ahead for the top tier journal. Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, if you can just be very brief, this is the last question I'm going to ask you before I open it up to the floor. So when technology is a catalyst for human flourishing, what kind of empirical evidence is most convincing to editors? And what methodologies can provide evidence and gain more relevance? So we'll start with Dr. Brem.
We are very open here because it depends on the topic. and the question the author wants to answer. So sometimes a qualitative approach is great, sometimes a questionnaire is a good choice. With some other instances, it might be also appropriate to use an experiment. So we are rather open here. And what I would just like to highlight is that authors should be very open and explicit of what they did, because that sometimes is just not very clear, because it's just an abstract two-liner. We did an empirical study without mentioning when and where and with whom. So this is maybe a small hint for some of the authors, which could be helpful for us to avoid a desk rejection, because sometimes this is not enough information that we can proceed with it even.
Thank you so much. Dr. Steenhuis?
Yeah, I would have the same comments. It doesn't really matter what kind of methodology you follow, or even empirical data. Sometimes it can be conceptual, but it has to still have this strong theoretical component in it, because that's what we're looking for, and basically that it would have a practical consequence. Let me add just another little bit of insight. I know that you're short on time, but essentially kind of an insight is this. Just for, if you're a potential author, here's what you have to consider. Let's say my journal has 1,400 submissions a year, just throw out a number. And let's say I publish 70 papers a year. That means that only 5% of the papers end up getting accepted. What you need to do as an author is you need to think about, how is your paper actually valuable? Why should my journal publish your paper? And again, 95% of the papers are not going to make it. So it needs to have something interesting. That's a key part. How you get there doesn't really matter, but it's still a scientific journal. So I had somebody submitted something actually yesterday, and it was a case study, and has no justification for the case, no justification why it's a certain number of cases, no justification on how the cases were selected. That's not scientific. I mean, yes, the study may have been good, but that's not a good article. You have to write for a journal, and mine is a scientific journal. So that's what we want to see.
Thank you. Dr. Steve Walsh?
Hi, my picture's showing now?
Yeah.
Yes? No? Okay, no, I just echo what everybody else is saying. You want to have things, methodology doesn't make any difference, other than a lot of people like to see two methods at one time. That seems to be a trend in the field. So if you're doing case study, also do some empirical evidence as well. And so many people are using two methodologies now. And I would echo that would make it almost harder to show implication. I'm trying to do one where I use one thing for the conceptual or the theoretical knowledge and the other for the implication right now. So I think those are happening in all the journals right now.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Dr. Breno Nunes?
I'll follow up on, I will not repeat what everybody have already said, because I agree with them. I think it goes back to having good scientific, process there. Identify the problem, a problem that's truly relevant. It's half of the way through. And I know that Steve said, it's old school. So yeah, I'm a bit of a romantic as well. I like the old school approach. I think find something that is truly important, and then the methodology is your servant. It's not your master. Doesn't mean that you cannot experiment with methodologies, and try to kind of find problems out there that your methodology is. But let's move to what your question is referring to, which is the empirical evidence. And I'll be speaking more broadly, not necessarily just about IEEE EMR here. I'm talking more about my field. And we are in the middle of a climate crisis. There is an ecological crisis out there. There is, societal inequalities that need to be tackled. We're talking about AI. In the morning, we're talking a lot about AI. When I was growing up, there were, the narco states that were commanded by physical crime activity. Now, I was reading on the news watch or listening to the radio documentary in the BBC, and I've heard that 40 to 60% of the economies in Myanmar and Cambodia are actually being led by AI-supported, AI-driven cybercrime. It's coming. All these phone calls that you get unexpected. There is someone in Cambodia with a fake federal police from Brazil trying to grab money from you. It's absolutely, incredible. But So where is the research? I know that Jeremy does that. Where is the research on unintended outcomes? And what kind of evidence you need for that? We need evidence on tangible improvements on the ecological area. How do you tackle that? How we can be inspired by all the fields? If you go to a field of marine biology, they spend number of years trying to put a grant of a couple of million pounds to buy a submarine. They go down to the deep ocean, they take a photo of one single being that has not been documented yet. That's published in Nature, right?
Thank you.
So that's hard evidence, because
Right.
that problem, that's the type of evidence that solves that problem, right? So I think we need to start thinking in particular in very similar ways. If we're talking about green technology, for instance, what is the baseline? What do you actually
Thank
mean? What is the theoretical lenses that you're using?
Right.
And the definition of sustainability for that particular studies. Yeah.
Thank you. Nazrul, be brief, please.
I think from my perspective, I would share that the most convincing evidence is the quantitative analysis with qualitative impact, right? So if we can combine these things, then it would be more, convincing way, that kind of, that evidence. Another thing, I think, if we can think about that, how technology analysis can trigger that innovation outcome, right? So it is something, how can I make the breeze? And that it will be the convincing impact, one of the convincing impact for the journal. So regarding IJTIP, and if I go back to TFSC, although it is a multidisciplinary journal and then a huge number of submissions, big journals, more than 10,000 submission is there. And it is very difficult to identify the narrow way to showcase the journal. But that now we are working on that to track into clusters. So we have identified 5 different clusters, and we are working on individual clusters and how they produce impact in those clusters individually. And that is the way to move forward.
Thank you so much for all that. Thank you all for your amazing insights. I would like to now invite the audience to ask a question. Jeremy. Okay. Can you pass it to? Jeremy is next. Jeremy was first.
Yeah, you can go first. Have time.
Can you please turn it on?
Press and hold.
Okay. Now? Okay. The editors for some magazines are too busy because you are looking for names and so on, and then they are really too busy, and they try to spend as little as possible time to handle a submission. This is a fact, okay? So that's number one. Number two, the multidiscipline is something that's very important. Why? Because you bring a lot of ideas. As a manager in industry, I got to learn this from practice. That means I listen to different contributors, different than my own field, and I learned over the years that this is a very good way to develop and to get results. When you look to some of the magazines, the editors are very narrow. They have a very narrow, and they are not open to any idea in their classical way. And I have seen this plenty. That means the editor, he is just focused to one discipline. Anything that is outside what he does, he considers it garbage. He considers it garbage. And he is not opening, he or she, of course, is not open to this. and I have seen it, and it is a real fact.
What is the question, please?
The question, you know, is the
Yeah, okay.
the
No,
monthly
I got it.
We
Yeah,
have- we have
I think we
someone
got it. I think just for, just to make sure we're talking, speaking the same language, I think there is an acknowledgement of how busy
Yeah.
editors are, and I would agree. I think there is an editorial crisis there. There is a reviewer crisis. Sometimes we choose 6 people to do a review. We send it out. We get one poor review after 3 months, and that's sometimes a lucky case, you know. So there is this problem. It needs to be acknowledged. There is the other element that you're talking about, the editor bias. I think the editor bias, it needs to be looked with very careful eyes, because sometimes a lot of papers also hit the journals. They do not even have the basic hygiene. They get desk rejected precisely because there is there is a review crisis in the back, and the editors is handed up because how he's going to choose a diverse pool of reviewers. So it is a problem, but authors, they need to take the responsibility. They need to read the journal they are submitting a paper to. You know, if they don't take the responsibility, they don't understand the style of the journal, they don't understand the rigor of the journal. Even I don't like to call it the game, you know, but that's the word. If they don't understand the game, if a journal gives you just one shot, you've got to put the best manuscript you can there. You cannot simply go expecting a feedback, you know. So I think that's kind of my comment to balance the sides.
I mean, when you are in edited positions, you must think about that, of course, the broader audience, right? And also think about the aim and scope of the journal, what you are focusing on. If you, of course, we have received too many articles that are not aligned with the aim and scope of that journal. They don't read it, actually. They just wanted to see the ranking. So if I submit 3-star journal, I can submit it. If it is rejected, okay, let's go to that other journal, submit it. And what is the trend most of the authors are doing? But if they do properly align that work, it can align specifically in that journal, they can target that journal, they can prepare their paper in that audience. And in that case, they don't be rejected, they go through the review process. But I think in my experience, I receive, when I handle couple of special issues for TFSC, for Technovation, for IEEE Transaction Engineering Management, several special issues I publish. I have received more than 200 papers for one special issue, where I can only have accepted only 12 papers. So it is very difficult to see and just reject fast, based on that it is not aligned to the topic on themes. But of course, it is another difficult challenging is for finding reviewers on that topic, on a specific topic. Sometimes they decline, it takes time, and that's why it's lengthy process. If authors are complaining, because TFSC takes ages, so 2 years, 1 year, 2 years to get published. So that's very difficult. So now I think we can have to organize that way, that we need to more focus on to see the journal and paper content and reject it and discuss.
Dr. Brem? We have
yes, maybe just very quick comment on that. I think I see all your points, but you need to consider we are all volunteers. We are not getting paid for that. So this is also why I cannot answer each author. And I get many of these emails. I received a paper last week. When can I expect review comments? That's not going to happen, right? So we are not professional providers, and that's a system or by default a problem in the system that the wrong people are making a lot of money here. But that's one aspect. The other aspect is about reviewers. I always say everybody wants to publish, nobody wants to do reviews. So if you want to change the system, please volunteer, sign up as a reviewer for TSFC, for IEEE TEMS, for EMR, submit your review, because this is a key ingredient. We have so many troubles these days to find reviewers, and we have to send out 10, 15 requests just to get one review at all. And then it's even poor or made with AI. So being a reviewer is important. And I would also like to mention some journals also have this in the system. So you see in the system who did reviews in the past, and there are some people who never did any review for the journal, even though they were asked many times and then want to publish. That might also be an criteria at some point. And last point, editor bias. in the journals I'm involved in, I never see who is the author. I just see the paper and the submission. And that's also important to me to look only on the content side, and then we decide how we proceed with this. So it doesn't matter if it's from India or from Germany or from US. However, you can see it quite quickly just looking at the article, how much effort the author put into the article. And here I'm saying AI gives a big advantage now, because these days, using AI tools properly, you can prepare your paper in a very professional manner as a native speaker can do it. This is very different from 10 years ago. And this is also something you should use if you're not a native speaker, as I am as well.
Thank you,
Thank you. I
Dr.
hand over to
Bram.
Jan, I guess.
Thank you, Dr. Steenhuis. If you can quickly finish what you want to say in a sentence or two.
Okay, so very, very quickly, I think the comment made, about editors being biased or whatnot, I don't think that is true in general. If you look at my journal, you can see that we publish papers from wherever. Again, who the author is doesn't matter. But what does matter is, I think a lot of people think, and this is a major misconception, that, oh, I have this great piece of research, your journal should publish this. Let me tell you, the people that have gotten Nobel Prizes in the past, their papers have been rejected before they finally were accepted. And the reason for this is it was rejected probably by a journal that didn't have a good fit. So I'm echoing what was said earlier. You have to do your homework as an author. You have to figure out what this journal is about. You can have a great paper, but if the paper is not about manufacturing technology, it was going to be rejected by me. That's just how it works. And we have, yes, it's busy as an editor. So you quickly have to make your point. I look for a cover letter. I want to see your cover letter explaining why I should publish that paper. If you can't explain it, it's going to that's rejected.
Thank you, Dr. Steenhuis. Dr. Walsh, very quickly.
Oh, I don't know. I think everybody's talked about everything. I
Okay.
will say that I
All right.
did special issues, and
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So one last question, Dr. Hall. Yeah, we thought you had the microphone. Oh,
So
No,
thank you so much. First, Stephen, I don't think you can see me, but it's really good to see you on the big screen. I had a wonderful time with you before, and I just wanted to say you're really missing out here at Nile University. It's fantastic. So if you get the opportunity, please do come. I had a series of passive aggressive questions, but I'm going to pass on those ones. I'm just going to say I was a journal editor for 10 years. I feel like it was a prison sentence. You've done your debt to society, and I think this is the way we need to start treating our editors, is that they do an enormous contribution, and we quickly default to political interference or things like that. I think you guys nailed all of the challenges that you're grappling with. Too many submissions, too many people that aren't reading the journals, that aren't reviewing the papers. All of those things are extremely valuable things. And Bruno, you really nailed it. As an author, we need to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility for our submissions. We need to take responsibility for our community and review papers. So that's all I wanted to say. So thank you so much for actually attending these sessions. They're extremely valuable.
thank you very much. We're closing the session. What did you say? Yeah, we're drawing to a close now. So what did you say? That's what I'm doing. We are closing the session now. Thank you very much. And now we'll hand it over to Dr. Tariq Khalid.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all the editors. Thank you, Bram. Thank you, Harmjan. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Momaya. We miss you. You should have been here.
Yeah, we wanted to be there.
Sorry. I got stuck very badly and I got late. I'm extremely sorry and apologize each of you. I'm extremely sorry for that.
Thank all the editors, and I'd like also to give a token of appreciation to all our editors. I can't hand it to you, but it's here for you. Please. Okay. Gita? Bram. Okay. Bram. Okay. Thank you, Bram.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tariq.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So Tarek, does that mean you come over here and hand me one of those things too?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Why don't you keep the picture? They deserve one. Keep the Zoom.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Great job, Deepa.
Let's take a group picture with all the Zoom. Everybody on? Steve is not showing. Steve, you have to be on the picture.
Yeah, that's how you want to be on the picture.
Huh? Are you in the picture?
Sorry, just move left. No, you move right.
Okay.
Give Steve in the middle. Go close to
Are you in the picture?
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Steve is in the middle now.
Okay. This way? Okay.
انا كنت عايزه اشوف شكلي انا عامل ازاي في البروفا ازاي ممكن نتابع معاك تلفزيون علشان خاطر تبقى
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mama.
Thank you so much for this day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex. Thanks, Hamyan. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you
Moyama.
Thank you. Thank you,
Momaya.
guys. Enjoy the conference.
Yeah.
Miss you.
Thank you, Dr.
miss-
Bram. Thank
Now
you, Dr.
we have
Stevens,
the
and thank you,
banquet. You
Dr.
should
Steve
join us
Walsh.
for the banquet.
Thank you, Dr. Momaya. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm very sorry. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for our keynote speakers and our panelists. It was my pleasure having you all. It was my pleasure knowing you all. Buses will be ready to go to the gala dinner at Crown Plaza at 5:30 from our reception. Thank you.
So